Welcome to another installment of the webinar series, Important Questions in K-12 STEM Education with me, Todd Hutner. As always, I like to just show this picture, my first year teaching. That's me in Tallahassee, Florida, and almost 20 years ago now, and I've learned quite a bit in the intervening years. Joining us as the moderator today is Jill Gregory. So today's important question is, what does the T in STEM really mean? So we hear this idea of STEM education. What do we mean by the T? And I went on Google and I pulled up some of these word frequency graphs. And the first one I did was for STEM education. And you can see in the late 1990s, there seems to be this explosion into the early 2000s of the frequency with which the word or the phrase STEM education is used in sort of all print material that Google has access to. I also decided to break it up between science, engineering, mathematics, and technology, and STEM, so we get an idea. Individually, those seem to still be used more frequently than STEM education, but you can see that with the rise of STEM education, there's also been potentially a dip in how we refer to these individually. So we can see that the frequency of STEM in STEM education, that acronym has grown quite a bit over the past 20 to 25 years. And STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And I think that there's broad agreement about what we mean by science, mathematics, and engineering in K-12 education. When we're talking about science, we generally mean biological, physical, earth, and space sciences. Mathematics, we mean number operations, algebraic, statistical, geometric thinking. Engineering, designing solutions that apply mathematical and scientific knowledge in context of civil, mechanical, chemical, electrical fields. And now within those disciplines, I think there's room for debate on what we should be teaching in terms of what specific practices or what specific content. So for example, in the NGSS, simple harmonic motion is not explicitly named, whereas in some state standards, particularly if you're talking about a high school physics class, that is an idea that is named. But I think generally speaking, if you talk to most people about what science and math education should be, we have a pretty good idea, a pretty good sense. I think there is, however, much less agreement on what technology means in the K-12 setting. Some treat technology as this broad set of experiences and learning outcomes. So these are standards from ISTE, where they have 7 sort of domains along what students should know or be able to do, or the experiences students should engage in during their K through 12 education. But to me, these don't always seem technology. So in the digital citizenship, for example, one of their standards that students should learn is about intellectual property. And while intellectual property and understanding what you need to cite and give credit for and what you can and can't use is important in a technological or digital realm, that's also outside of technology. So if I make print magazines or print newspapers or posters, I still probably need to know things about intellectual property law in the United States, or if I'm in another country. Other entities often treat STEM as it relates to treat technology as it relates to the other STEM subjects. So here we have the definition or the rationale from the framework for K-12 science education on why to include technology standards in the science standards. And it's because technology along with engineering relate to the applications of science and provide an opportunity for students when they're utilizing technology or learning about technology to also increase their learning in science. And then others will treat technology as sort of skills to develop or a list of courses to take. So here's some documents from the state of Texas where I live. On the left are standards from a middle school tech apps course. So students should be using digital typography such as page layout or font formatting, those sorts of things. And then here's a list on the right of CTE courses, or career and technical education courses. And so there are all these different definitions floating around out there. And I think it leads to a lack of clarity on what the desired outcome for student learning should be. So sometimes people are talking about technology, and what they really mean is that students should learn coding. Students should learn how to code in Java or HTML. Other times they mean it as sort of robotics. Other times they mean technology in terms of understanding how technology impacts a person's life, or how to be a safe digital consumer and user. Sometimes people talk about technology in terms of bioethics or data science, or they mean web design or UX and UI principles, which is user experience or user interface principles. So there's a lot of different thoughts about what we mean by the technology, and part of this is because of the uncertainty of how we treat technology. So what should students learn? What should they be able to do? And I think when we answer this question, we first need to start with this definition of technology and a definition of STEM education. And so here's two ways I like to think about technology. So technology is all types of human-made systems and processes, and then I add objects. Technologies result when engineers apply their understanding of the natural and mathematical world and of human behavior to design ways to satisfy human needs and wants. So I think this is a really important definition of technology. One, we can talk about technology as part of a process. So how we go about reading something or writing something can be a process. How we collaborate can be a process, and there can be technological advances to those things. I think objects, I don't think of a cell phone as a system or a process. I think of it as an object. The other thing that's important, I think, is realizing that there is this relationship between technology and society. So technology, like language, ritual, values, commerce, and arts, is an intrinsic part of a cultural system, and it both shapes and reflects the system's values. But the result, or technological advances, are often complicated and unpredictable. They can include unexpected benefits, unexpected costs, and unexpected risks, any of which may fall on different social groups at different times. Anticipating the effects of technology is therefore as important as advancing its capabilities. So in this part of the definition, I think really understanding how technology is used by and interacts with people. Technology isn't a thing unto itself. The use of a piece of technology is informed by our cultural values, and then may further inform the type of cultural values that sort of evolve over time. So I like to think about technology using those two definitions. And then my definition for STEM education is it's an approach to teaching the STEM content of two or more STEM domains bound by STEM practices within authentic context for the purpose of connecting these subjects to enhance student learning. So I think this is really important for us to think about, that the goal of STEM is an integrated learning experience that is authentic, which I think is important. In my current life, either professionally, socially, or civically. I can't say, well, right now is my math time, and so I'll wait until I have science time later in the day. And so the world is integrated in the way the discipline knowledge is used and or impacts us, similarly with technology. So I think when we're talking about STEM, we want to think about STEM education in that regard, and think about how it can help us understand our world and how it can help students understand their world. And so given those two definitions, I have a couple of pictures that I think really help draw this out. So does this picture show technology? Does this picture show STEM education? You can pause this if you watch it on YouTube and answer that for yourself. I think it does show technology. So that whiteboard, it appears to be one of the smart boards where you can project something onto your board, and then students can come up and work with the projected image. But I don't think it shows STEM education. And the reason I don't think it shows STEM education is this doesn't seem to be authentic to math or technology. I don't know mathematicians that do a lot of projects, and students aren't necessarily investigating and trying to understand their world. Now, that doesn't mean this is bad teaching. Let me be very clear. I'm not making the claim on the sort of learning that's going to occur in terms of the mathematics. All I'm stating is I don't know if this necessarily shows STEM education. Here's another picture, and this picture very much could have come right from my high school chemistry classroom. I put a Google search in for 1990s high school science room. And does it show technology? I think it does. And the reason I pull this picture specifically is because, again, remember, technology is sort of a man-made system, process, or object that allows us to do something and to solve problems. We might not think of old microscopes and those computers that still use floppy disks and probably aren't connected to the internet as technology, but they were technology, and they could be used in some technical or technological capacity today. I think it might show STEM education depending on how the teacher is using those computers to enhance student learning. So are they using computers to analyze data and look for relationships that they might not have done as quickly or efficiently or as reliably without those computers? Are they using computers to simulate things and help sort of create this reflexive relationship between the technology and the science that's going on? In this picture, I think it definitely shows technology. It looks like students are making some sort of car. That could be robotic, it could be remote controlled. They might have to program some sort of code for the car to go to work, given the computer in the background or the laptop. Is it STEM education? I don't know if it is, because given the similarity between all the cars, my hunch is that these students are following directions. So it's more like a recipe than about a learning experience and trying to reflexively use technology to understand science or to solve a problem. So if we need to make the robotic cars to carry school supplies from the main office to teachers' classrooms, then it might be STEM education because they're deploying that car to solve a problem. And then finally, does this picture show technology? I think sort of. The main focus of this picture is not the equipment in the background, but the fact that the teacher is leading a discussion. So I think it probably doesn't show a lot of technology, but I think it might show STEM education. So here, the teacher is talking with their students about bioethics. So how does the technologies associated with advanced biological understanding impact our lives, and are some of the ways we might want to use those technologies ethical? And I think that gets at that second definition of technology, or the second way to think about technology, through those relationship, or through that relationship between technology, science, and society. So I might say that this is STEM education, because students are thinking about technology and the role it plays. And so if we put those four together, I think we might have a new way to think about the T in technology in STEM education. And so for me, if the question now is, what should the T in STEM education mean? I think the T should mean that students develop technological literacy. If you're familiar with scientific literacy as a concept, or mathematical literacy, this is very similar. So students should be learning in such a way that they are technologically literate upon graduating from high school. So what are some things that a technologically literate person can do? I think a technologically literate person can interact with technology in a safe and responsible way. So understand how we need to interact with internet technology, cell phone technology. I think they are capable of adapting new technologies as they emerge. So many of us might have parents who are struggling to use new smartphones, but the fact that they can is quite impressive. If you were to go back 30, 40 years and just hand a smartphone to someone in the sort of sweet spot of technological familiarity, a teenager, they wouldn't be able to do that. So a technological literate person can adopt new technologies. They can utilize technology to solve individual and collective problems, and choose the best technological device, tool, system, process for the specific problem at hand. I think they can describe the relationship between technology and society at large. So how does technology or technological innovation impact society, individuals, and groups? And what is the role of flexive relationship between those? I think a technological literate person also can engage in technological practices. So they might be able to do a little coding or some computational thinking. I don't expect them to build websites necessarily, but maybe they need to create an if statement in an Excel document or an Excel sheet. I think they can describe the relationship between technology, science, engineering, and mathematics. So technology is driven by scientific discovery, and it drives scientific discovery. I think they can evaluate and identify the costs and benefits of a piece of technology. So what is the benefit of the introduction of smartphones? What is the cost of the introduction of cell phones? And if they are involved in the creation of technology, are there going to be costs to individuals or to society at large by bringing a new piece of technology to market? And I think that they can pursue further learning and careers that require deeper understanding of current technologies. So we want students to be technologically literate, but we also want those students who want to go into computer science, who want to go into cybersecurity, who want to be programmers or web developers to have the tools they need to do so. And I think when we utilize the T in this way, when we think about the T in this way, it'll inform our our teaching and how we use technology as a tool for understanding the world, and not necessarily just taking worksheets and putting them on the computer. I think STEM education is at its best when we treat it as interrelated approach to learning, instead of just sort of individual silos that are added together as STEM. And I think when we treat the T as developing technological literacy in our students, we are engaging our students in a more meaningful STEM education. Some upcoming topics next week. I won't have a webinar, but you could join me at Ancela and NSTA in person if you're interested. On the 26th, my webinar is how are we going to make sure they pass the end of the year test? And then on April 4th, April 2nd, when am I going to use this? Talking about how to make some of our ideas or some of our content relevant for students, particularly in the context of engineering. If you're interested in other professional learning opportunities, you can check out our websites at argument-driveninquiry.com. And that is our Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and then you can email me at todd@argument-driven-inquiry, or you can find me in LinkedIn at Todd Hutner. I hope that y'all found this helpful, and thank you very much for joining me.